All right, and we are back for round two of music theory that everyone can understand. And if you watched the last stream, I was trying to figure out this restream chat thing so I could see the chat coming in from all the different places that this is streaming to, and I figured it out. So hopefully we won't have any trouble with that. And from the looks of it, everything looks to be working out all right. Let me just double check here on Facebook, make sure it's coming through. Let me see, where are we here? Oh yeah, it looks good. So I'm going to go in there and mute myself. Right. Let me just double check here on mute. There we go. So I can see those comments. And if anything else comes in from YouTube or Periscope or anywhere else, I should be able to see it all. So it's wonderful technology. I love it. If anyone wants to know how to do this, PM me and we'll figure it out. I'll let you know how it's done. Okay, so if you caught the last episode, which was the day before yesterday, I streamed that one. We basically talked about right from square zero, I guess you could say, right? What is music? Which we established is just three things: it's rhythm, it's harmony, and it's melody. JF coming through good. Okay, awesome. And it looks like my chat thing is working too, so that's awesome too. So we got rhythm, we got harmony, and we got melody. And what we did last day is we dove into a real simple way to understand what's commonly referred to as key signature, okay? And all, just to recap, all key signature is out of the 12 notes that we have in Western music, a particular key or family of notes is by choosing 7 out of those 12. But it's a very specific 7. And it's the 7 notes that when played in a row ascending sounds like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, right? And that's where everything begins. And that's referred to as, well, that scale is called the major scale. And it should be a sound that most people are familiar with. And if you... We've talked about two different ways to determine that. One was this tone, semitone, tone, semitone, the intervallic, the interval space relationship between the notes. And then the other one, which is a bit more advanced, but also gives you some insights that you're going to need further on down the road as we continue this conversation, was that circle of fifths, the cycle of fifths. And just to recap a little bit, let me switch cameras here. Just to recap, what we've got going on here on the circle of fifths is, well, first of all, let me refresh your memory on what it's for, okay? The circle here is for determining how many sharps are in a key, okay? And then once you know how many sharps are in a key or in a scale, then you use this little phrase down below here to figure out which ones they are. This is referred to as the order of sharps, okay? So if we do a quick little example here, I'll just bring this up a touch. If we looked at the key of E, so we wanted to find the key of E. We looked at the circle of fifths here. We realized it's got 4 sharps. So step 1 is just write the letters out: E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E. And then look here, we got 4 sharps. And which 4 are they? Well, it's the first 4 from the order of sharps. Father Charles goes down, F, C, G, D. So you go ahead and you put a sharp sign beside F, C, G, and D. And sure enough, kaboom, that is the E major scale. That is the key of E. So E's key signature is 4 sharps, F, C, G, and D. That's the key signature of the key of E. E major, that is, okay? And why is major so important? Because as you know, there's other kinds of scales. The major scale is important because all the other scales and chords and all the other theory is built from that major key, that family of 7 notes that we've pulled out of the available 12 that give us the notes that are in that particular key. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. And by the way, if you have questions as I'm going along, feel free to leave them in the comments and I will try to address them as we go. And even if you're watching the replay later, put your questions in, because I'll try to come back and I'll get notifications. So I'll try to come back and check in and make sure that people's questions are answered and everyone's understanding what's going on. Okay, so that's essentially what we covered last day. There was one thing I did want to point out to you though, and that is the fact that you'll notice if you look here on the circle of fifths again, when we count up, and just to recap, by the way, we always start from 0, the 0 key, which is always C, okay? Because C, as you recall, is just white keys. Okay, so it has no sharps or flats in it. And then we count to figure out the key with one sharp. We just count up 5. So we go C, D, E, F, G, and that's the 1 key. G, A, B, C, D, that's the 2 key, and so on and so forth. But you'll notice when we get to B here, we go B, where is it? B, C, D, E, F. And you'll notice that the F is here, but I've put a sharp sign beside it. Same with the C. And I just wanted to point that out and explain why that happens and how you can remember. And that is the fact that if this key of F, if the 6th key, which is an F, has 6 sharps in it, and you put the sharps in, well, the first one is an F. So it's not an F scale anymore, it's an F sharp scale. Same with the C. The key of C has 0 sharps, but the key of C sharp has 7 sharps in it. And you might be wondering, well, when you look at an octave, so one octave is from one note to the same note, so from C to C. If you count how many sharps there are, you'll notice that there's only 5 black keys, okay? And this has confused many people, many students that I've worked with. But the thing that I want to remind you of is that sharp simply means one semitone to the right of a note. Flat simply means one semitone to the left. So if you're on E right here, this next note is F, but it can also be called E sharp, okay? Same thing with this B. If you're on a B, the next key is the C, but because there's no black key in the middle, right? But if you wanted to, you could also call this C a B sharp because it's just one semitone higher than the B. So hopefully that makes sense. That's how you can have 6 and 7 sharps in a key. And the reason why you would call, by the way, if you want to win friends and influence people with your amazing musical vocabulary, the term for a note that has 2 names, like the alternative name for a note, is called the enharmonic equivalent. So C is one note, but the enharmonic equivalent is B sharp. You could call it a B sharp if you wanted to, okay? Funny enough, my high school music teacher, one of my high school music teachers' name was Blaine Sharp. So his initials were B sharp, right? Which was amusing to us, of course, because we were music nerds. So, so there you go. And Mr. Sharp, if you're watching, what's up, bro? Okay, so that was just a little recap of where we left off last day, okay? So what I want to do today is talk a little bit about Mark Robinson. How you doing, brother? Thanks. Appreciate that. I want to talk a little bit about, okay, now that we've learned how to determine what notes are in a key, what's some things that we can that we can do with that information, okay? So and so there's 2, okay, this key signature stuff. It covers 2 out of the 3 aspects of music. Remember, there's 3: rhythm, harmony, and melody, okay? So this key signature stuff is a study in both melody and harmony, okay? So let me show you what I'm talking about in terms of melody. So let's look at the piano one more time. So if we look at the key of C, I'll just use C because it's easy to think about. So we've determined what 7 notes. There's C, D, E, F, G, A, and B, and then we're back to a C again. And you can repeat that process up the octaves until you run out of keys on your keyboard. This is just a tiny little 2-octave keyboard, so so I don't have too many options here in terms of range, but it's just a little visual so that you can kind of see what's happening. So let's hear that again. We got. It's also got really tiny keys too, so I got the old fat finger thing happening every once in a while, but you get the idea, okay? So once we've determined what those notes are, and that's the key of C, if we had somebody who was jamming along with us, let's say they're playing guitar chords or whatever, and they say, hey, Des, we're in the key of C. You want to play a little something on the piano over top of that? Well, once I know what the notes are, then it's really easy for me to just start speaking the language of music using those notes. The thing that I find interesting that nobody explained to me when I was coming up and learning music theory and taking piano lessons and whatnot, right? All the teachers always say, here's the scale, you got to practice your scales up and down, do, re, mi, fa, right? No one ever explained to me why. Like, I assumed that, okay, it's to develop your technique and maybe your muscular control and kinesthetic memory, and it's a physical exercise, right? And that's true. But it's also a musical exercise. And let me explain what I mean. If I take the notes in that scale, okay, I can play those notes in any order I want to, with any rhythms I want to, and then begin making music. For example, I might do something like this. Okay, so I just played a little melody there, and it sounded fine. I mean, I just made that up on the spot. It's not a song, I don't think, but all I'm doing is taking the notes that I've determined from last day's lesson that I've determined are in the key, and I use those notes as a roadmap as to which notes are good, which notes are going to sound good with this key. By default, they will. You really can't go wrong. You can't make a mistake. If indeed the band is jamming in the key of C, and I play anything I want to on the piano, leaving out any notes that are not in the key and only playing the notes that are in the key, then I can jam. I can have a musical conversation now with the rest of the people that I'm playing music with. Okay, so that's the idea behind a scale. It's where are the usable notes. It's a roadmap as to where the usable notes are. Okay, so that's why it's so important. And again, there's other kinds of scales, but we'll get to that. We'll save that for another conversation. Okay. Because all those other kinds of scales are just taking a major scale and then applying a formula to it to alter it into something else. So if you don't know your major scales, then you won't know how to do those steps that we're going to get into later. Okay. So I'll give you a quick demonstration. Let me see if I can pull up something here. Let's see. I'm going to go to YouTube here. And by the way, you know what? I'll just put this on the screen here. Because I can do that. I love this technology. It's great. So if you go to YouTube, and no matter what instrument you play, learn your scales. Like pick a key, figure out the notes, like we talked about last day. Find those notes on your instrument, if it's a guitar, piano, a flute, whatever it is you play, and then go over to YouTube. And I'm going to stick with the key of C for now because it's super easy to think about. And then type in jam track in C major, and let's see what comes up. That's bluesy. Let's see, acoustic guitar backing track. Let's try that one. Let's just see what it's all about. Okay, and hopefully you guys can hear that. It looks like my camera's frozen again. Let me fix that. Okay, so we got a little jam track going. Let's bring that back. There we go. So again, the key of C. Okay. Now, if this is indeed in C, yes, I do believe it is C, G, A minor, F. That sounds pretty good. So now I can take any of these white keys and just start playing. Pardon the fat fingers. I'll play with one finger so you can see what I'm doing clearly. Okay, so you can kind of see the idea there. Let me pause that jam for a second. And come back to, there we go. So you can kind of see what I'm saying, right? Let me pull up my chat again so I can see what's going on. Rebecca, why is this not always the first lesson in music? I appreciate that it makes sense. That's excellent. Okay, so you can kind of see what I'm saying. So the key is just the collection of notes that are the good ones that are going to work. And then the stuff I was playing there, I'm just making it up. I'm just noodling and doodling, right? And this is where you can really start to have so much fun on your instrument, because now you can improvise. Now you can start just speaking, right? And of course, as your technical I always do this because I'm primarily a guitar player, but as your technical proficiency increases, Danny Walters, how you doing, brother? Then of course, you know, you can get faster, you learn tricks and whatever. You should hear Danny Walters rock a keyboard. I can't do that like he does. But anyway, so you get the idea. So the key is just the roadmap. The scale, I should say, is just the roadmap as to where the good notes are. So let's say, for example, let's just to prove this theory again, this time I'm going to search for a jam track in, I don't know, D major. Okay, let's see what we can find here. Chill, mellow, D, acoustic guitar in D major. Okay, it sounds good. Let's try that one out. Okay, so I'll pause that for a second. And if you recall, if you look back at the circle here, the key of D is the 2 key. So it has two sharps in it. Which ones are they? Father Charles, F and C. So let's look at the D scale. There's a D right there. For those of you who aren't familiar with the keyboard, that's a D right there. So D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, and D. Okay, so our scale is... Okay, so I have to make sure that I don't play a C, because there is no C in this key. I want to make it a C sharp. Same thing with the F, okay? So let's turn the jam track back on, and I'll show you what's going on here. There's F sharp. Oh, did you hear that? I hit a C. No good. There, C sharp. You can jump to skip notes. Oop, nope, F sharp, right? F sharp. Okay, and so on and so on and so forth. So let me just stop that there, and we'll come back here. So, and I'll bring my comments back up. So hopefully this makes sense to you. So that's the reason why we started where we did last day. You have to be able to figure out what are the 7 notes that make up this family, this key, okay? Then, once you find those notes all over your instrument, you can just walk all over them any way you want to, with any rhythms that you want to, and you will be making music and communicating in a way that sounds tasteful with whoever you're jamming with, or if it's a jam track on YouTube or whatnot, okay? So, hopefully that makes sense. So this is where the scale comes in. That's melody, as we talked about the other day. Melody is one note after another, like you know what I was just doing. Fat fingers, you get the idea, right? One note at a time, okay? But what I wanted to get into with you today is how we can use this same information that we learned last day to figure out harmony, the chords in a key. And I'm probably going to play my guitar more today than the piano, but I'll use the piano to show you some things. Caitlin, you got a jet. That's cool. Catch the replay later if you want to hear the rest of it. Okay. Okay. So, because like I said, harmony, melody, and rhythm are the 3 components of all music, regardless of genre or style or whatnot, okay? Whether it's hip-hop, country, pop, doesn't matter. It's rhythm, harmony, and melody are the 3 components. So we just talked about how we can use this information to make melodies, okay? But I want to also get into how we can use this information to make harmonies, okay? This is what's referred to, again, if you want to write these down, the fancy musical terms so you can impress people later, this is what's called diatonic harmony, okay? Diatonic simply means staying true to the key. So there's 7 notes in a key. The chords that you can play will not use any notes that are outside of that key. And if you did, it would be non-diatonic, or you would be adding in what's referred to as accidentals. Even if you play them on purpose, they're called accidentals in musical vocabulary, okay? So let me break this down for you real quick. Let me bring up the other camera here. So as we talked about, you figure out the key, how many sharps, which ones are they, write the letters down, put the sharps in where they're supposed to go. Now you have the key, okay? I'm going to flip this page over so we have a little more space to operate here. And I'm going to just start with the key of C because, again, it's the one with 0 sharps or flats in it, so it's easy to think about. So I'm going to try to write a little larger here, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. And I'll just put a C on the end because that's how most people think of it, okay? So there's the key of C. And if I play it on the piano, there it is. Okay? That is the key of C major. So the way in which we build chords is we pick a note that would be the root of the chord, and then we skip a note in the scale. I don't mean skip a key, I mean skip the next note of the scale, and we land on the 3rd note. Then we skip the 4th note, and we land on the 5th note. So we've got 1, 3, and 5. Like so, okay? So these are what we call triads, and it's because we're building the chord in thirds. So that the distance from this to the 3rd note of the scale is called a third, and from here to here is another third. It's a slightly different third, but we won't get into that right now, okay? So we play one note, we go up a third, we go up another third, and we play those notes together, and we've got the chord that is in this case, it's a C chord, okay? I can also go to the D here and do the exact same thing. So there, skip a note, there, skip a note, there, skip a note, and there's my D chord. That is, it happens to be a D minor, but don't let that confuse you. I'll explain that in a minute. If I go to the third note of the scale, there's the E. I can also build a chord from there. Okay. Same for the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, and then we're back to 1 again. And people are messaging me on Facebook, but I'll try to ignore that for the time being. Oh, it's Goose. It's Angus. I just set up his. I just finished setting up 2 of his electric guitars. So let me. He's gonna come and pick them up. Let me just let him know here. On a live stream, bro. Okay. All right. So there's Angus dealt with. And by the way, if you have guitars, everyone's at home right now. So if you got guitars that need repair or setup or whatnot, we do a little porch pick up and drop off at the front of the house here. And I'm happy to help you with your guitars. I just set up the workshop again. So, so feel free to let me know. Okay. Okay, so as I mentioned, you build your chords by picking a root note, skipping a note in the scale, and then playing the third, and skipping another note and playing the fifth. That's a triad, and that would make the sound of a chord. So one thing you may have noticed if you are an astute observer is that those chords that I just played, they didn't all sound like the same type of chord. And let me show you what I'm talking about in terms of type of chord. So this chord right here is a C major, okay? If I alter it a little bit, and don't worry about this, we'll explain this later. If I alter it a little bit, it's now a C minor, okay? Listen to the difference between a major chord and a minor chord. Some of you may already know this, but others may not. But a major chord has that sort of bright, cheery, optimistic sound to it, and a minor chord has kind of a darker, sort of more morose kind of sound to it, you could say, right? And so as I play up through the chords in the key of C, so what you'll notice what I'm doing is I'm not playing any of the black keys in any of these chords. I'm only playing notes that are actually in the C major scale, okay? And I'm just building them in thirds to make a triad, to make a chord, right? As I play through those chords though, have a listen. Some of them are going to sound major, some of them are going to sound minor. See if you can pick out which ones are which. So here's chord number 1, chord number 2, chord number 3. Right, that one sounds a little bit minor. Major would be like this. Happy, sad, right? Chord 4 sounds pretty bright. Chord 5 sounds pretty bright. Chord 6. There's major. There's minor. We can't play major because that note's not in the key of C, so we play it like this. And it happens to be an A minor chord. We look at chord 7. That one sounds weird. That's the weird one that doesn't sound like it's major or minor. That's because it's not. It's called a diminished chord, but I'll get to that in a minute. And then we're back to chord 1. Okay? The reason why I'm demonstrating this for you is because the order of the type of chords, that first chord was a major chord, that second chord was a minor chord. That order never changes. So once you understand what notes are in a key, you can automatically pick up your instrument and know all 7 chords that are in that key. And let me show you how it works. And by the way, this never changes. So I'm just going to number these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then you're back to 1 again. Okay, so that is the same as that. Okay. So chord number 1, 4, and 5 are referred to as the primary chords. You may have heard people use that term before. They are always major chords, and I'll use a plus sign to represent that, okay? Chords 2, 3, and 6 are referred to as your secondary chords, and they are the ones that always turn out to be minor chords no matter what key you're in, no matter what major key you're in, okay? The last one is the weird sounding one, and that is what's called a diminished chord, and I represent that by a little circle, okay? So this is always true, okay? If I play chord 1, C major, chord 2, D minor, because that would be major, but I can't play that note because it's not in the key. So I play it here instead, and it's a minor chord. That's a minor chord. Chord 4 is a major chord. Chord 5 is a major chord. Chord 6 is a major chord. That's the weird diminished chord, number 7. And then we're back to chord 1 again. Okay? Now, this applies no matter what key you're in. Okay? The chord. So you may hear people people talking about their chords as numbers instead of chords. You may hear people, Fleetwood, what's going on, brother? You may hear people say that this chord progression is 1 6 2 5. It's like, well, I don't have a 1 on my instrument. What does that mean? Well, all it means is chord number 1 from whatever key you're in, chord number 6, chord number 2, and chord number 5. By the way, 1 6 2 5 is an extremely commonly used chord progression, but we won't get into that right now. Okay, so if we were in the key of C, 1 6 2 5 would be C major, 6 is A minor, 2 is D minor, and 5 is G major. Okay, so if we want to hear what that sounds like, let me just grab a guitar. By the way, I think my guitar is 2.5 steps down, so if you're playing along. So chord number 1 is C major. Chord number 6, A minor. Chord number 2, D minor. And chord number 5, G. And I'm actually just going to angle my camera down a little so you can, in case you're a guitar player, you can see what I'm doing on the guitar. Okay, so let's hear what that sounds like. Okay, so there, sounds fine. Sounds totally fine. Let's see what happens if I played one of those chords wrong. Let's say I played 1 6 2 5, but I'm gonna play the 5 as a minor chord instead of a major chord. And listen to the difference in the sound. One of those chords is not like the other, as they say, right? You can hear it. It just bugs the ear. It's like, ooh, that's not quite right. It wasn't supposed to be this. It was supposed to be this. And there, it now sounds musically appropriate, okay? And by the way, as I mentioned, this applies to any key. This part here, let me show you. This part will change if you're in a different key. This part will not. Let me show you what I mean. Let's do another key. So if everyone recalls how this works, let's do the key of E, okay? So first we write our letters out, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, and then again, just put an E on the end. Number them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Apply this. Again, it never changes. 1, 4, and 5 are major. 2, 3, and 6, your secondary chords are minor, and 7 is diminished. Now let's put the key signature in. So if you look at the other side of the page here, the key of E has 4 sharps. Which ones are they? Father Charles goes down. Okay? So let's put those in. We got Father Charles goes down. Okay? So now our chords are E major, F sharp minor, not F minor, because we have to stay to the key signature, F sharp minor, G sharp minor, A major, B major, C sharp minor, and D sharp diminished. Okay? So now let's play that same chord progression, 1 6 2 5. This time we'll play it in the key of E. So 1 is E major, 6 is C sharp minor, 2 is F sharp minor, 5 is B major. Okay? Let's hear what that sounds like. Oh, my camera froze again. 1 sec. There we go. Okay, so in the key of E, 1 6 2 5 sounds like this. 1 6 2 5. Okay? So when you start to understand how this all works, it becomes easy to play the same song in a different key. And this really is handy, especially if you sing, because sometimes there's a song you really love, but the original artist has a different vocal range than you, and maybe some of those notes are too high or too low, so you can transpose it into a different key. If it was originally in the key of C and some of the notes are too low for you to hit, then maybe you're going to want to bump it up to the key of D or E, perhaps, right? And once you know what the chords are in terms of their numeric relationship to the key. So if I'm in the key of E, when I play an E major chord, that's chord number 1. Okay? If I was in a different key, it wouldn't be chord number 1 anymore. It would be a different number, if that makes sense. Okay? If you got questions, put them in the comments. I can see them here. In fact, I'm going to open up my Restream comments just in case there's anyone. No, everyone's on Facebook. Okay, cool. Because this, by the way, is streaming to YouTube and to Periscope as well at the same time. So that's the whole idea with this Restream comments thing. I can see the comments from all those places. Okay, so anyway, we digress. So hopefully this kind of makes sense to you, how once you understand how to find the notes that are in a key, and there's always only 7 of them in the major scale, and then you understand what we just covered today, which is your primary, secondary, and tertiary chords. So your primary chords, just to recap, are 1, 4, and 5. And what that means is they are always major chords. Your secondary chords are 2, 3, and 6, and they are always minor chords. And finally, your tertiary chord, I guess you could say, is chord number 7, and it's always a diminished chord. Okay? So let me play through the chords in the key of C so you can hear them on the guitar. So here's a C major. It's going to be C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, and B diminished. So sound like this. Okay, and all of those chords sound, I just played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 with a little strum on it, and already that could be a song if you wanted it to be, okay? So what I'm hoping that you can take away from today's conversation is 2 things. 1, how to start exploring and speaking music melodically by using the scale as a roadmap to where all the usable notes are. Throw a jam track on, pick a key of E, figure it out, figure out what the notes are on your instrument, whatever your instrument might be. Throw a jam track on YouTube that's in the key of E major, and then just dance around on those notes until you start to feel a rhythm and start to really link in with the music itself. Because the music, the jam track, is the context of the conversation. What you add to it is entirely up to you. If you stay true to the scale, to the key, you can't make a mistake. You might play things you like better or worse than others, but you can't make a mistake. It's impossible because all of those notes will fit with any chords that are in that key, assuming that the band is not playing chords that are not in the key, okay? So that's being able to improvise. And when I say improvise, I mean speak, just to be able to talk music with your instrument, okay? But I also wanted you to understand a little bit of the basics behind how you can improvise harmonically as well with your chords, okay? So now that I've figured out the 7 chords in the key of C, I can just make music up off the top of my head and maybe sing some words or whatever, and it will always sound reasonably good, okay? Let me give you an example. I'm just going to call out numbers. In fact, type numbers between 1 and 7 in the chat. Give me some numbers between 1 and 7. I'm going to start with number 1, okay? And if I don't see a number from you, I'll pick one. But if I see one, I'll move to it. Between 1 and 7. This is number 1. I'm going to go 6. I'm going to go 4. I'm going to go 5. I'm going to go 7. I'm going to go 2. 3. 6. 4, 5. Angel says 3. There's a 3 for you. Oh, I'm gonna hang on that 3. I like that. Let me go to a 2, 5, 4, 7, and Doug says 1. There's a good place to end it. Right there. Okay? So we're just making that up off the top of our heads, right? Because I understand what 7 chords are in the family, the key of C. I also understand what 7 notes are in the key of C. So let's say I recorded that, then I could go to my next track and figure out the C major scale, which on the guitar looks like this. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And I could start jamming. I could start making my melodies to go along with the harmonies, okay? So hopefully this is making sense to you. We covered quite a bit in between last session and this session, but it's the basis from where everything else springs up from, okay? So if you like I say, if you join late, by the way, watch the replay. If you have questions, put them in the comments, even if you're a replay watcher, because I'll look them up and do my best to answer them when I can. But hopefully I've done my job in explaining and breaking this stuff down in such a way that is fairly easy to understand, because as you can see by the title of these streams, that is my goal, okay? Is to really break things down in such a simple way that you can pretty much almost never not get it, right? I've been teaching for a long time, and I've been slowly refining my methods of explaining things, and this is where I'm at right now. So if there is anything that's unclear, please let me know, because I'm continuously refining my methods of teaching and explaining some of these concepts. And of course, one of the biggest things is what order you learn things in, because a lot of these things build off the previous piece of information. So you've got to learn, you got to have step 1 before you can understand step 2, and definitely before you can understand step 5. It's going to sound like Greek to you, unless you're Greek. It's going to sound like something else. So hopefully, like I say, this is making sense. If you got questions, leave them in the comments. Also, if you are enjoying this, share it, like spread it around. If you know, a lot of people are doing school from home right now. So if you got kids and they need a music lesson as well in their curriculum, then send them over here and get them to watch. I'm keeping this family friendly as best I can, because I know a lot of people are at home. And if you are interested in getting one-on-one sessions, music lessons, whether it's guitar, piano, drums, bass, vocals, then let me know. In fact, I'll put a link in the comments here. I think that's right. Musicschool.club/register. Yeah, and you may notice by my logo in the corner here, I spell music school cool. So when you type it in, just leave the H out. There's no H in school. But I put a link in the, in fact, I'll pin that comment. Put a link in the comments, musicschool.club/register. So you can register there, get a free lesson to see if it's going to work for you. We're doing the online thing right now. And if you like what happens, then we can continue from there one-on-one. It's half-hour private lessons, okay? And if you prefer to just enjoy these free live streams, but you want to show a little bit of love, there's a paypal.me link. In fact, I see now that I spelled it wrong, so maybe I'll put that in the comments too. I wonder if I can edit that comment. Can I edit that comment? Yeah, I can. So we'll put that one in, and wait. It said I could edit, but it didn't let me. Okay, I'll unpin that comment. Oh, now I can't type any comments. Isn't that interesting? Okay, well, it's paypal.me/techmuse. I spelled it wrong in the title, but you guys should know how to spell PayPal. Okay, so like I said, if you just want to buy me a beer or something, then shoot a couple of bucks that way. That'd be great. Share this around with anyone who you think it might be relevant. And if you do want to get together for some one-on-one music lessons, then let me know. Musicschool.club/register. The first lesson's always free anyway, just to see if it works, see if we get along, see if the technology is working for everybody, and then we can carry on from there. Okay, so I will probably be back with the 3rd installment, most likely tomorrow. I'm going to try my best to do this on a daily basis, probably around 2 o'clock. And the first one I did later in the evening, but I thought, you know what, if I do it earlier in the day, then maybe some of you people who are homeschooling can get your kids on and learn a little bit about music. Okay, so until next time, keep jamming, and we'll see you again probably tomorrow. Tomorrow at 2. You know what? I'm gonna commit right now. Tomorrow at 2. We'll see you then. All right. Take care.